Hey friends, and welcome back to our place for another video. Today I'm going to share with you the 5 best budget ingredients that I always buy from the supermarket. It doesn't matter where we are in Australia, I always seem to be able to find these things at a pretty reasonable price, so they're definitely budget friendly, but they're also readily available. I've been able to find these items or a variation on these items, maybe not these specific items that I'm going to show you today, but it doesn't matter if I'm shopping at a Coles, a Woolies, an Aldi, an IGA, a Foodworks, a Drake's, some of the other ones that we've come across, I don't know, any of the other supermarkets in Australia, I can always find these ingredients at a very budget friendly price, plus I know what to do with them as well. So I will share that with you too, what to do with these 5 ingredients. So you can always have them on hand. You can always pull recipes together, but you can always save a buck as well because they're always a good price. Item number 1. And look, if you've been around my channel for long enough, you probably know it's going to be oats. We love oats. They might not be everybody's cup of tea, but we eat oats pretty much every single day in one form or another, and they are always budget friendly. I can use them to make overnight oats and porridge and things like that are fairly obvious, but you can also use oats as a substitute in flour recipes. So I will substitute in oats, specifically some kind of quick oats, into my pancakes, muffins, cakes, you name it. You can probably sub in oats for at least some of your flour in your flour recipes. And not only are oats really good for you, regardless of what some other people might say on the internet, oats are actually a really good budget food. They are not only loaded with carbohydrates, which I know they get a bad rap for, but guys, carbs aren't bad. But also, oats, being a whole grain, are loaded with fiber. They are loaded with protein. Yes, oats, little old oats here. I have a half a cup of quick oats pretty much every morning for breakfast, and that gives me almost 6 grams of protein just there in my little half cup of oats. Oats are a powerhouse, so they're nutritionally awesome. They're great at helping lower cholesterol. They're just magic, and they are so versatile. So you don't just have to do porridge. There are a bunch of different ways that you can cook with oats, whether it be for breakfast or whether or not you want to incorporate it into other baking recipes. Oats I can always pick up for a reasonably good price. These ones are a little bit more expensive. These are from Woolies, and they are the organic Australian quick oats, but you can walk into a supermarket pretty much anywhere in Australia and you can pick up a bag of oats for around $2. Item number 2 on my list has got to be tinned legumes. So whether you want to go for beans, lentils, chickpeas, whatever, it doesn't matter. I love these bad boys because first of all, they're quite cheap. So I can usually pick up a tin for under $1.50, depending on where I am. These ones from Woolies are running at $1.10 at the moment, which is a really good price considering I can chuck one of these in a meal and it's going to fill it out. So much like oats, lentils, beans, they're a great source of carbohydrates. Yes, they're also a great source of fiber. Fun fact, did you know that your average serving of legumes is about the same as your little average serving of oats in the protein department? Crazy, huh? I know, I'm just repping oats, but I do love them. Back to my beans. I love to have these on hand. Yes, dried is cheaper, but you also have to have the time to cook dried, and that isn't always feasible for me, and it might not be for you either. But beans and lentils in a tin are still really good value for money, considering that if you're going to replace meat or at least part of the meat in one of your dishes, and you wanted to chuck in a tin of lentils, your tin of lentils at $1.50 is going to be much cheaper than, say, 500 grams of minced beef, which is definitely going to up the price closer to $10. Although, truth be told, I actually haven't priced meat in a long time, so that is just a guess. Maybe what we'll do is actually jump on the Coles and Woolies app, and I'll stick something up here with the actual price of minced beef at the moment. But it is definitely a budget swap. We follow a whole food plant-based diet here, so we eat a lot of lentils and beans and things like that. Maybe your family doesn't do that yet. Maybe you still want to eat meat as part of your diet, and that is absolutely fine. No judgment here from me. But what I will say to you is that if you want to bring your grocery budget down a little bit, substituting some of your meat, particularly in dishes where it won't be noticed, for example, spaghetti bolognese is a great one, maybe put in half of the mince that you normally use and fill out the other half of the dish with some sneaky lentils. You will bring the price of that dish down, and you're going to be adding in a whole heap of beneficial nutrients as well. So our lentils and beans, our legumes, are a great source of plant-based protein, but again, they're also full of fiber, which our bodies definitely need, and a whole heap of phytonutrients as well. So beans, you know what? I can buy them in bulk, stick them in the pantry, and they last forever as well. That's another fantastic reason why I love them, because even if I don't use this week, it's still going to be good next week. So value for money. Next up, frozen veg. Frozen veg gets a little bit of a bad rap, but to be honest, it is completely nutritious. It's actually picked while it's at its peak and it's flash frozen, so freezing it like that actually contains a whole bunch of the nutrients that are in the vegetables, so it doesn't deteriorate as much as perhaps some of your fresh stuff, which can sit around for a little bit longer. Now, fresh stuff is still fantastic, and I do like to do a mix of both, but frozen veggies are definitely super economical, partly because they are harvested when this is in peak season, so the price of it is going to be quite reasonable. The other reason why it's so economical is because I can buy a big bag like this, and if I don't use it all, it's going to stay safe and sound in my freezer until next week. I'm not going to be tossing out fresh stuff that I didn't get around to using, and that is one of my biggest tips when it comes to saving money on your grocery bill, is to make sure that you are using the stuff that you buy, because anything that we throw out or anything that we just store in our pantry and our freezer indefinitely is money that we have tied up, and we've either lost it because we've tossed it, or we've lost it because it's just living some kind of weird other life at the back of the freezer and never to see the light of day. But back to my frozen veg. As we've traveled around Australia, I've always been able to get some kind of deal on frozen veg. I haven't always been able to get home brand stuff, but in those instances when I haven't been able to, and I've purchased the brand name bit more expensive frozen veg, there's usually something on sale that I can pick up, and I can rotate through the different types of vegetables and have some variety in our diet. And like I said, it's going to live safe and sound, tucked away in the freezer until I use it all up. Number 4 also lives in my pantry, and that is diced tomatoes. These ones happen to be flavored, and I got these ones because they were all out of just plain old diced tomatoes, but it doesn't really matter. The ones that have got a little bit extra in them, this one's got onion, garlic and basil. They are a little bit more expensive than just your plain old diced tomatoes, but either way, these are a great staple to have on hand, and I always use them, and they always come in handy, so I always seem to pick them up. This is one of those things that it could also be considered a pantry staple for us, because you know, you have a look at pretty much any meal plan or recipe or whatever, and you're probably going to need a tin of diced tomatoes. So these ones, again, always economical. I can usually pick up some diced tomatoes for under $1.50. which means it's a great way to put in vegetables into the meal that you're creating, and super versatile again. You can sub this for straight up pasta sauce. I use this instead of passata sometimes. Yeah, it's a bit chunkier. If you really want a passata, stick this in your blender and it, you know, it won't be chunky. But just get creative with it. Tomatoes, again, this adds a little bit of color to our meals, so it's, you know, a nice red vegetable, but also, more to the point, it's cheap, it's versatile. I can stick it in the pantry. I know I'm going to use it because it's such a common ingredient in recipes, but if I don't use it this week, it'll be fine again for next week. So the challenge of this video was to come up with 5 budget ingredients that I always buy from the supermarket. And I really wanted to think about what are the things that I actually always buy, not just sort of go out on a tangent and get the budget things that everybody says. I could have put in rice, I could have put in pasta. You guys probably know these things, but I wanted this to be a video about what I actually always buy, and I can always get at a reasonable price, and I always use. So that was my criteria. So thinking about the meals that we make and the types of things that I always have on hand, and when I'm going to the supermarket, I'm doing a mental checklist to make sure I have these things in the pantry or the freezer. Like, I don't even need to think about it. If I'm running low and it's not on my list, it's going in my trolley anyways, because I'm going to use all of these ingredients. The last thing on my list is vegetable stock, which I don't know if that surprises you guys or not, but I really thought long and hard about what was going to take the 5th place, and I went with vegetable stock because this is such a cheap and easy way to add flavor to the dishes that you're making. It goes with pretty much everything. Now, I've obviously gone for a vegetable stock, and this one's the Vegeta Organic, because this is what I like. This little tub here does run at about $4.50, $5 depending where you are, and I can't always get this specific brand, but it is readily available pretty much most of the places that we've been. But if not, there will be some sort of other vegetable stock that I can grab there. And we specifically look for vegetable stock again because whole food plant-based, but maybe you guys, maybe it's beef or chicken. Chicken is probably the most versatile if you're going to go for a meaty flavor, but you do you, boo, no judgment here. This goes in so many things, and if I don't have a seasoning, like a specific seasoning that I want to use, maybe it's Moroccan, maybe it's Mexican, whatever, if I don't have that for the recipe, you know that your good old vegetable stock is going to pick up the slack. So yes, this is predominantly just a whole heap of salt and some vegetable flavorings. Nutrition wise, there probably isn't a whole lot going on here, but what it does do is elevate all of the other meals that you make. So you're getting all of the goodness from your legumes and your vegetables and all that sort of healthy stuff that you're putting in the meal. Vegetable stock is what's going to elevate it so that it tastes delicious and your family ask for more, because at the end of the day, that's what you want. This one I personally like I said, but you know, some kind of stock powder I prefer. Again, as opposed to a liquid, once it's opened, you're going to put it in your fridge, you need to use it up in a couple of days. This bad boy here can live in my pantry until the day that it goes rock hard, and considering that it's mostly salt, it's probably not going to do that, but we use this all the time, yeah, and I always make sure I have it on hand. Well, that's a wrap on the 5 best budget ingredients that I always buy, but as always, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments, and I'd like to know, what are the 5 best budget ingredients you always buy? Every home is different, we all eat slightly differently, so I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know what are the budget ingredients that you always buy, that you always try and keep on hand. Let's try and limit it to 5, because that was actually really challenging. I really had to think about that. There was a lot of other things that could have gone on the list, and they are possibly on your list, and maybe they just went a little bit higher up the list, but it's all good. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments, so I'll meet you down there and I hope you guys found today's video interesting. Hope you enjoyed it. I do hope to catch up with you in my next video. Hope you guys are having an absolutely fantastic week, and I do hope to catch up with you next week for next week's video. But until then, take care, my friends, and we'll talk soon. Bye.